All right, guys, this is the final section of Silly Salmon, and this should be another shorter one. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to add audio to our game and put some sound effects in, and then we're just going to do some final, like, little touching up type things, okay? So the first thing is to add audio, we have to add the audio object. So it's like how we added local storage, how you add keyboard, how we added touch, things like that. So right-click on object types, add a new object type, and we're going to go for audio. There it is. And it's just added into our game, okay? Then what we need to do is we need to import our sound and music files. So in the project window in the upper right, you're going to scroll down and you should see a folder called sounds, okay? You want to right click it and you want to do import sounds. And then you're going to click import audio. And then you want to go into your Silly Salmon folder. Now you can see mine. The last thing I did was I uploaded the log. So it's still in that broken log thing, but it doesn't show anything because there's no sound files. So I'm going to click back to images, and then I'm going to click back to Silly Salmon, and then I'm going to go into the sound folder. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload all of these except the fairground and the game music. So I'm going to click on bubbles. I'm going to hold control and click on everything except the fairground and the game music. And then I'm going to click open. I'm going to let them all queue up, and I'm going to click import. And now all those sound files are in. So for the two that we didn't upload, those are going to go into the music folder. So I'm going to right click on music, import audio, and we're going to grab fairground and game music. And then when it's done, click import, and they're in. So that's pretty easy to get those in there. Now that we have them in our game, now we can very easily just program when we want them to play. So the first thing is let's go to ES Start. And we're going to go to On Start of Layout at the top. So basically what we want to do is when you start the game initially, we want to play the fairground music. So I'm going to add an action to my On Start. I'm going to do audio, and I'm going to do play, and I'm going to choose the fairground. Okay, we do want it to loop, so we're going to change it to looping. And you don't always have to make a tag, but in some instances you do. And in this instance, we do. Anytime that you're going to want to manually stop a sound from playing, typically when things are looping, you want to make a tag because at some point you need to tell it to stop playing, and you have to have a tag in order to do that. So we're going to make a tag, and we're just going to call it start. Okay, so it should say play fairground looping, tag start. Do not get thrown off by the volume 0. Volume 0 does not mean it doesn't have any volume. Volume 0 means it's just at the default level based on your computer settings. Okay, if you raise the volume above 0, it means it would be louder than the normal volume setting. So basically, when we're programming, you can use this to make certain sound effects louder or softer than others. And the player would just have their computer volume set to what sounds good to them. Then all the sounds would be relative to that volume setting. So for this game, we're going to leave everything at 0. Okay. Now we're going to go to the ES Store. Okay. Basically, we have a coin spending sound effect. So on the events where you're purchasing something, so that's events 2 and 3 here, we want to play the sound effect. So I'm just going to add an action to when I touch the power-up land, audio, play, and we're going to play coin spend, not looping. We don't need a tag because it's just going to stop when it's done. Okay. And then the coin spend, we're going to do the same thing on power-up smash. So I'm just going to copy and paste that over like that. So play coin spend when we purchase either one of those. Okay. So we got that. Um, now we're going to go into our ES game. Okay. Now the game is when we're actually playing the game. So our start screen, if you remember, we were playing the fairground music. And we gave it the tag start. Well, when we start the main game, we want to play a different sound. So what we have to do is we have to stop playing the sound from the start screen and start playing the new sound for our gameplay. So in the on start of layout, right at the top of your ES game, we're going to add an action. We're going to do audio, and we're going to do stop. And the tag is going to be start. You have to spell it exactly how you wrote it the first time, so just make sure that lines up. I did mine with a capital S, so I wrote this with a capital S. Okay, then we're going to add another action to tell it to play the new music. So audio play, and we are going to play game music. So game music is just the constant running background music. Okay, we do want it to loop. And since it's looping, we need a tag because if it's looping, it's never going to end until we tell it to stop. And in order to tell it to stop, we need a tag. So the tag for this is going to be game, Game. All right, so we got that set. Now we're going to play a couple of sound effects when the fish is jumping and diving. So let's go into touch controls. For me, it's number 11. Yours might be different, but look for your comment. So the comment where you're moving down, okay? This is where we're diving. I'm going to add an action for audio, and I'm going to play the bubble sound effect. So bubbles, not looping, we can leave that all just like that, okay? Then we want to go to number 14. We're going to play the jump sound effect actually when he finishes the jump. Because what happens is the fish jumps in the air and then lands in the water, right? And when the fish lands, we want to play a splash sound effect. So rather than putting the event when we initially start the jump, we're going to do it when the jump finishes because he's going to fall into the water and make a splash sound effect. So in this on jump finished, we're going to add an action for audio. We're going to play, and we're going to play splash. And it can be not looping, zero, all that can be the same. Now, what we want to do is because of the way this is set up, so right when he finishes the jump, we're telling him to go to swimming animation. It's going to look weird if he goes to swimming animation and then splashes. So we want the splash sound effect at the top. So that way, the first thing that'll happen is it'll splash first and then play the animation for swimming. Okay. All right, then we're going to do a sound effect for when we use one of the power-ups. So we're going to go down to event 58, obstacle collisions. And you want to find this else event here. It should be the one that's underneath land equals 0. This is basically, and you can see it subtracts 1 from land. This is when we're using the land power-up. So we're going to play a sound effect when we use it. So I'm going to add an action here. Audio, play, and we are going to play shovel. There's an actual sound called shovel. Okay, so just leave everything else default there. Then we need to play a sound effect when anytime we collect a coin. So let's go to 64, salmon on collision with coin, add an action, audio, play, coin. Not coin spend. Coin and coin spend are two different things. The coin is more like a ding, like in Mario when you collect a coin. Coin spend is going to do more like a cha-ching, like you just did a cash register and you bought something. So they are different sound effects. Okay, so coin not looping, no tag. Okay. Now there is another spot in our code where we actually earn a coin and we want to play the coin sound effect. So this one on mine, I believe, is event 45. Yep. So it's this event here. So if you find the every DT seconds event, it's a sub event of that. It's the score percent 200. So this is saying every 200 seconds we earn a coin. You can see it says add 1 to coins. So obviously we want to play the coin sound effect here. So audio, play, coin. Then click done. All right, we got that. Then we want to make something happen when we hit a game over. So if we go down to the bottom, let me just minimize this. It should be event 65. Yep, right here. So here's our game over event. So you want to find the game over equals 1. So when you hit the game over, basically we want to make it so it stops playing the background music and we want to play a game over sound. So I'm going to add an action for audio and we're going to stop. And the tag for this is game. Remember, that's the game that we did on start of the main game. So we're going to stop playing the game background music, and we're going to add an action for audio, and we're going to play, and there should be a game over sound effect. Yep, right here. The game over doesn't need to loop or anything. You can just leave that just like that. All right, so that's it for the sounds. So the sounds are done. So we're literally almost done with the game. The last thing we need to do is we're just going to do a couple of quick little touch-up things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my game layout, the main game layout here. And we're actually going to do a really cool water effect. And the other thing is, I did this in the last video, but I saw it in the presentation. They actually address it here in section 8. So in case you're working back and forth and maybe you're just watching the video for 8 and you did 7 the other way. Section 8 is where they tell you to make these lane markers invisible. So if you did this in section 7, you're good. But if you haven't done it yet, just double check it. So on the right side in your project window, click on lane marker and then scroll down and make sure initially visible is not checked. Okay, and you're good to go on the lane markers. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually make a wave effect over the water. So first thing is make sure you're on the background layer. Okay. And I just want to check something really quick here. Okay. Yeah, make sure you're on the background layer. We're going to double click out in the gray area here and make a sprite. And the sprite is going to be called river waves. And I'm going to insert and click on the screen. In here, I'm going to click the resize button. And we're going to go 720 by 1500. Okay, and the rest of this should be okay. Then we're just going to paint bucket it in a blue color. So let's just go, I don't know, this looks fine to me. All right, so let's make it some type of bluish color that you like. Unless you want to have like a crazy pink or purple river, like you totally could do that if you want. Okay, whatever color you want, it's fine. Okay, so I've got that filled in. Okay, we're going to change a couple of settings. So we're going to set the position to 360 by 640. So go up here, 360 on the left side here, comma, 640. That should line it up perfect with everything. Okay. The size is good. And then we want to change the opacity. So this is like we did on the water. It makes it a little bit transparent. We're going to go 75 opacity. Okay, so now you can see it's kind of see-through there, right? Okay. Then what we need to do is we want it to be, well, we'll do some settings, but we're going to do an event that basically will put it on the bottom of the layer. So it looks funny right now with the water over the land objects, but we're going to have an event that'll send it below everything later. Okay. So what we're going to do to this is we're going to add a water effect to it. Okay. So make sure you are on the river waves, not the water. You're on the river waves. So you can check the name at the top in the properties, make sure it's highlighted. Okay. If you have trouble selecting it, you can click it from the right in the project window. That might make it easier. Okay. We're going to add an effect. Now, this is our first time using effects. So it's kind of like adding a behavior or an instance variable. It's here on the left side. So effects are just visual effects you can apply to an object. So if we click on effects, and we do add new effect, there's actually an effect called water. So if you just type in water, and not water background, we're just going to do water. You can see it got all like weird and wavy looking, right? And if I run the game really quick, you can see how that water's just like over everything. Um, and that's what it's going to look like here. And you can see my sound is playing as well. So I'm going to mute. I'm going to mute my background sound so that it doesn't come through the mic here. So you can see though when the game started, you can see it looks funny because the river waves are on the top, and then they end up going below. So we're going to make it so it goes below right away in a minute. Now the other thing is our river's kind of moving upstream. So there's a setting here on the left side here. We can adjust the X speed and the Y speed. So we're going to change the X speed of the water to 0 so that it won't shift as much left and right. It's going to be more of a vertical like wave. That'll look a little bit better. So if I run it again, the wave, see how the wave's just going vertical now? It's going like straight up and down. It's not moving left or right at all. And that looks a lot more natural for what we want to do. Okay. All right. So we've got that. So then what we're going to do is we are also going to put the river waves on our start layout. So let's go to the start layout because we want the waves here as well, right? So just go ahead, make sure the background layer is selected, drag the river waves on, and we're going to put at 360, 720 for position. So go to the left, 360, comma, 720. Got a position there, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to put the water effect on the title as well and make that a little bit fun and make that look like it's wiggling around. So click on the Silly Salmon title and you can add an effect, add a new effect, and you can call it water. Okay. And we're going to change some settings in here. So we don't want it waving a ton. So we're going to put the speed down to 5 so it waves a little bit slower. We're going to do X speed at 4. Y speed at 4, and we're going to do emboss at 2. Okay. And the emboss is just how deep the waves are. So we're going to make it so it's not very deep. Okay. So we're going to go like that. Okay. So I think, make sure that's all on. Yep. We've got that on there. Let's run it and see what that looks like. Okay. So that's not actually doing too much yet. Um, that's weird. Did it not actually go through? Hold up. No, it's on there. All right, so yeah, we'll just go ahead and leave that because that's what the presentation says. I didn't really notice a difference on mine, but if you want to change the settings and make it more visible, that's fine. It's maybe just very, very subtle there. Okay. All right, so we've got that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our ES game. And on start of layout, we have to move the river waves to the bottom. So I'm going to add an action for river waves, and we're going to say move to bottom. Bottom. Okay, move to bottom of layer. Um, We're going to do that. And then I think we should also do that on the ES start as well. So I'm going to go on start of layer here. I'm going to add an action for river waves. And I'm also going to move it to bottom of layer there just to make sure. Okay. Then the very last thing we need to do, and this is something that you won't visually see, but you want to click on your game title at the very top in your project window. And there's a main game setting you always want to change when you end a game. And there's something here that says under startup, it has first layout. You want to change the first layout to start. Now, this doesn't actually affect you when you're programming, but if you were to publish the game, it will know to start with the start layout. Right now, I'm still considering debugging. So if I click on the store and I run it, it's going to run the store. It's still going to run whatever layout I have selected, right? So you don't actually get to see this part of it working where we put the default layout to start, but just know that when you publish it, that's what's going to run. And then basically you want to run your game, you're going to save. The game is done at this point, okay? So you want to run the game and make sure everything is working. Okay. And like I said, my title there doesn't really do too much. Oh, it is moving. Yep, it is working. It's just very, very subtle, but it is waving just a little bit. So if you want to increase those settings so you can see the wave a little bit more, you can, but mine is very subtly waving. So that did work. You can see that the river is underneath the land, so that all looks really nice there. We can click play, and you can see the water looks really nice. Everything looks clean and polished and finished. Now, something you can do on your own if you want to is the store has no background. So if you wanted to add your own background to the store, maybe you want to put the river waves on there or something, you can. Just make sure that your text is readable. But if your store looks like this, that's fine. This is all that the main game has. So now at this point, if your game is done, you want to test it, make sure everything works. Then what you need to do is you're going to go to Google Classroom. You're going to go to classwork and you're going to go. Now, I apologize. I'm recording this like pretty far in advance. So I'm not actually sure what week you'll be working on Silly Salmon, but right now I have it in week 9, but that may not actually be the case. It could be in a later week. Um, but whatever week your Silly Salmon is in, you want to go to the Silly Salmon game instructions. Or actually, no, not the instructions. You want to go to the Silly Salmon actual game project. So I'm going to go into this quick. So wherever the game project is turned in, I'll turn it like this with the yellow folder. This is going to be in whatever spot, whatever week that I feel like the game is going to be due. And I can't judge that at the point I'm recording this. So wherever you find the Silly Salmon game project with the yellow folder, it's going to have the additional exercises. So now your job is you need to do these additional exercises on your own. So what I want you to do is first one, change it so that you get a coin after every 150 points is earned. I'll give you a clue. There's somewhere in your code where you're earning a coin after every 200 points or 200 seconds. Okay. So find that spot and make it so it's 150 instead of 200. Okay. The second exercise, change the number of coins needed to buy the land in Smash power-ups. I want you to make it so it costs 35 for both of them. Okay. The hint is you're going to have to make some adjustments on your actual layout. You're going to have to make some adjustments in your actual code. But basically, anything that's referring to the cost of those items, you need to make sure it's consistently costing 35. Okay. And I think I talked about this on the video when we're actually making that part. The third exercise, this is the challenging one. Basically, what I want you to do is I want you to make it so you can also control the salmon with the keyboard in addition to touch controls. Okay. I will give you a hint on this one because it's a little bit trickier. Okay. And I don't know if I have a separate video on this or not, but if you go to your ES game, okay, basically you want to look at touch controls, right? You can ignore like the touch zero stuff, all that. You do want to have a game over zero. But what I would do is I would make a new group. So I'm going to add a group and we'll call it keyboard controls. Okay. And what you would want to do is you'd want to add the keyboard object to your game. I won't show you that because I want you to try to do some of this on your own. And then in the keyboard controls, I would start by doing system, um, compare variable, and I would do a game over equals zero here just to make sure that you can only do the keyboard events while this is zero. And then basically what you want to do here is make a sub event for each keyboard key that you want to use. So you could do the arrow keys or you could do WASD. So let's say you made an event that says on up arrow pressed. You would want him to jump, right? So what you do is you already have code for making him jump. So here's your jump code right here. So you don't want the Y diff stuff because that has to do with touching. But instead of Y diff, it's just going to say keyboard up arrows down. And then basically you just want to copy these three actions down into your keyboard event. So what I'll do is I'll do the first one for you, and then you have to figure out the rest, okay? So right click on object types, add an object type keyboard. Okay, now that the keyboard's in the game, I'm going to add a sub event to my game over zero here. Add sub event. I want to do keyboard on key pressed. My example was I did up arrow. Okay. So since I know that up arrow is jump, I just go up into my code here where I know he jumps. Here it is. These are the jump actions. So I'm going to hold control and grab the three jump actions. I'm going to right click and copy. And I'm going to go down to my keyboard on up arrow and paste, right click and paste. And there it is. And so now when I press up arrow, my salmon should jump. So your job now is to do more sub events in here for all the other key presses and make it do the right thing in the action. Right? Boom. That's basically it for the main game. That's how you get the extra exercises going. And then remember, once you finish the additional exercises, in the upper right, there'll be something that says add or create. You're going to click add or create, attach your game file to it. After you attach the game file, you want to do the additional exercises Google form here. Make sure you answer the questions and mark off which exercises you've done and click submit. Once you've submitted the form and physically turned in the game, then you are good to go.